It's another episode of the Next Fix podcast. Today, we've got my pen pal. I just got this in the mail. I feel a little ill prepared because I would have liked to have dug into it, but hey, it's all good. Hayward, right? Jeff Hayward is here. He is the author of that book that we're going to learn all about. But as we typically do, I don't even say hi or nothing, brother. I want you to dig in. Maybe just like a little something about you, but then we want to know like when the shit hit the fan for you. What did it look like when things were ugly, man? We're going to like hit the ground running.
You want to get into that? We can get into that. Okay. Well, proud to be calling from White Rock, British Columbia, Canada. Talking to Ryan here. I'm like way on the other side of the continent. So, dinner time for me. It's probably late night snacking time for you, Ryan. But yeah,
brother.
I think we, like I said, we all have a story, right? And there's lots of different environment factors, biological, physical, social, that land us to this point of where we really accept that we need some change, right? So I started working in nightclubs at a really young age before I was even allowed to drink. It was a pretty gangster place and they just hired me. So I got really good at that. I got really good at partying. I had some previous experience, of course, through high school and whatnot, but I got really good at partying. And I thought, wow, I can make a living. I can make a career of partying.
That's so fun. That's crazy, man. Cause I mean, I know that I had said this before we hit record that we're cut from the same cloth, but that's what happened to me. Like I
Yeah.
was like, I can do this. And I was drinking behind the bar before could drink at a bar. And then I was in Las Vegas. So, I mean, just like you, I was like, I'm going to make a career out of this. That's what I did. That's what happened.
It fit our DNA, I guess. I don't know, but I like to think that us who have found a better place to live, but we were the rock stars. We were the all-star team of doing that, right? So we had a lot of preparation. We had a lot of education, and of course the experience. So it was real fun. I did that for until I was 26, 27. And then I figured, it was too much partying, that I would go and I would move to restaurants, because people in restaurants don't party, right? It's true. That was my mindset at the time. I gotta slow down. So I'm gonna slang food with a little bit
Right.
of booze instead of just booze.
Right. Right. It makes sense on paper. It makes sense on
It
paper.
it made sense, you know what I mean? And so I did that and I was pretty successful, and you know, I I found out I realized that every rich dude wants to own a restaurant, and they don't have a clue what that looks like, clue how to
Sure.
operate it, what's behind the scenes, the business aspect. So I started working for investors in putting together restaurants and designing restaurants and putting together operational plans and staffing models and all those things that come with that, which in hindsight, it gave me a lot of freedom, right? To bounce wherever I needed to bounce to construct my day how I felt fit. But it also gave me access to an unlimited supply of booze, like
Okay.
unlimited. And when you sell booze, and you might know this, people just give it to you because they want you to sell it. They want you to put it on the menu, right?
Right.
So, like, what a dream, right? What a dream for a drunk. And I I would just come home with like random bottles of cider, or beer, or spirits, and
Yeah.
I didn't even have to take it from the restaurant. I just show up and people would give it to me.
Right.
And needless to say, that created these patterns of drinking that were, unmanageable, but my job was to also manage them. So it's kind of a paradox.
Sure. And
Yeah.
now I'm imagining that, like, Jeff, you got so good, right? That you're doing this half cocked and nobody can tell because you were that good. And so you were like, I guess what they say, highly functioning. But I've seen people that take it to another level, right? That you're able to count, you're able to speak, and you've been drinking all day.
All day, yeah, all day. You're right. I like to think I was, but then looking back, like, there must have been some people that had suspicions, right?
Sure, sure.
But you know what, Ryan? It just, like anybody that enters treatment or enters some sort of, support for drinking or drugs or whatever it is, you know, I was the epitome of the people I see every day coming into treatment. And it wasn't because of the substance itself. It was because life just became too exhausting and life just became too overwhelming that I surrendered. I didn't know what I surrendered to, but I came home one night and I must have been drinking for like, 16 hours straight. And then I came home one night and I just, this thing hit me and it told me that I'm stone cold sober. Like you've heard that before, like it just stops working, right? It just
Right,
stops
right, right.
working after a while. And at that point, like in the past, ended up in the hospital a few times and tried to go to counseling and all those things that we try on our own.
What was it? What did you go to the hospital? You talking about like a mental hospital? You talking about pancreatitis? I mean, what was it that you had?
It's funny. Put it this way. I never saw a doctor for a sprained ankle. So it was always like withdrawal medication, or it was I did too much,
Yeah,
or I needed to do more physical symptoms. Yeah.
right. So when well, I mean, I'm sure you're gonna get to it, but like, withdrawals and stuff, I wanted to like, what kind of volume? Like, because it's hard to gauge when it's free and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it is.
there. Like,
Yeah.
you don't know because 'cause you're just a little bit here, a little bit there, and then, you got no real way to know how much volume, but what would you imagine that you were knocking back in a day?
So it's funny you asked that because I never had to think about that, right? Never had to think about that until I was doing an intake at the treatment center I went to. And it was for the first time somebody actually asked me, "How much are you drinking?" And I didn't know how to quantify that.
Right.
So how I calculated it was in hours and trying to like understand how much I would drink within that hour, right?
Right.
Oh, I was like, well, average to drink about, 12, 14 hours. And then I was like, probably, I don't know, 3 drinks an hour. And I was like, no, that can't be right. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
Yeah.
it, but it was.
Right, right. Now I know, like, when I was, like, really in the trenches, man, like, I know exactly how much I drank because I couldn't afford it, I wasn't at once upon a time, I was in the bars, I was in Vegas, it was all free, but then, in the latter portion, it was like I was, like, basically stealing money out of my family's bags and stuff to go for, like, we're talking $8, and then I would get a liter of vodka, and I basically Jake, it was about a liter a day, a liter
Yeah.
of vodka, yeah. It's, not a good diet.
It's not recommended. That's for
No,
sure.
not recommended. Uh,
Yeah. So I came home that one night and, I just acknowledged I needed some help, and that's when I went to a bed-based, treatment center, and it was foggy as hell, I tell you, it was foggy as hell for the first week or so, and then it was emotionally painful as hell, and, it was a 12-step program, and it was a lot of trust the process, trust the process, trust the process, right? And like I said, I surrendered, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do in life, but I know that stopped being an option. Yeah, and I did that, and I was it took a while after, I left a few days early, which in hindsight, probably the worst decision I ever made because I was scared as shit. Luckily, I had a friend who was doing this, a longtime friend, so he was a lifeline for me. Drinking wasn't an option after that. But that void that we talk about, it's so confusing, isn't it? Like, it's so confusing, like, what is this void? How do I fill it? Can't fill it with that anymore. So what's the solution? And, you know, I'm still looking for the solution on a day-to-day basis. I have strategies. Like I think we all develop some sort of strategies to show up in this life. But I really leaned on values and I was pretty good at partying, right? And in doing that, you meet all sorts of all walks of people, right? You meet, the celebrities to the gangsters to the average plumber to
Right.
the old experienced guy at the bar. And I just had this interesting take on like people really interest me.
Right.
And I knew I couldn't. So here's the funny thing. Okay. So you know what I was gonna do, right? Like a wife, I got a kid, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, I can't do that.
So you got a wife and kid, like, when
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
And I still do, thank
Yeah.
God.
Right.
Right? And, I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I had this idea that I was gonna sell coffee,
Okay.
you know?
Right.
I learned that, people that used to drink really like coffee. I actually didn't drink coffee until I was like, I sobered up, which is kinda crazy. Uh, I was like, "I'm gonna sell coffee. I'm gonna go run Starbucks." So I ran, operations. I'm like, "I'm gonna go run Starbucks." And for whatever reason, that didn't pan out, and I got my doctor, he said, "Listen, you can actually get some funds for education," right? He says, "You have a well-documented history of alcohol use disorder, and what you did for your profession, your occupation, is no longer viable for your long-term health. Basically, you can't do that shit anymore, Jeff, because
Right.
bad for your health, right?"
Yeah.
So I said, "Well, what am I gonna do? I don't know what I'm gonna do." At that point, still really curious about, my journey. How did I get here? How do I go forward? I'm like, well, why don't I be working substance use or social services, right? It's people. I could probably do that. So
But what
interesting.
happened what happened with the Starbucks idea? I mean, did you, like, ever, like,
I
get
don't
off
think
the
they got
ground?
hired. I think I applied to a few places
Right.
and yeah, I don't think they ever called me back.
Did you feel like that maybe they just knew you're a dirty bird and they're just like, "Nah."
Yeah, they probably looked at my resume and said, well, this guy's used to staying up at 4 a.m. So highly unlikely he's gonna wake up at 4 a.m. and come into one of our shops. I don't know, right? Could be
Right.
that.
So that doesn't pan out, but then I feel like this is a really common thread in people that have gotten some sober days under their belt and recovery is going well. I feel it's natural to be like, I'm gonna get in the system that helps people. Like, there's this desire to, like, reach back and kinda help somebody that you know what it's like, to be in their shoes. Well, how did that develop?
100%. My belief is that if people get into this work for only two reasons, right? Only two reasons only. The first one is to try and help themselves. And the second one is to try and help somebody that they love. Only two reasons people do this. For me, it was trying to help and figure out myself.
Sure.
And yeah, so I ran through some hoops with, some government funds because I was broke ass, right? Most of us when we kind of enter
Yeah.
that phase.
Right.
And they say, okay, well, what we need you to do is apply to all these jobs and prove to us that they won't hire you without this diploma. Okay. So I just, throwing darts at different social services job and somebody calls me back. And I was like, okay, right. I'll go to this interview, meet these two people. I don't even know what the hell they did. Right. But I was just like, okay, well, this is something. Right. Starbucks shot me down. So I need something. And, they got tattoos. I got tattoos. It feels good. And they hire me. It's what they hired me for was, a social services agency, really harm reduction philosophy, downtown Vancouver, really hotbed of, marginalized individuals and really severe, addiction and all that. But, the crazy thing is, okay, right, is that when I was 18, I got hired at the strip club. Okay, so I worked at the strip club and it was, downtown Vancouver. And it was on this corner of these two streets, right? Princess and Palace, right on the corner there. And I haven't been down there for a long time. And part of my job when I was a young buck there was to, chase away panhandlers, right? And, threaten them, like, don't bug the customers, like shit that I'm not proud of, but like, I've resolved.
Right.
So basically, I used to run out homeless people, treat them like shit, right? That's what my bosses wanted me to do. And, sometimes they would get smacked around. That's the honesty.
Yeah.
And so when you get hired for a job, right? And they say, okay, well, you're hired, you got to go to HQ for an orientation. So I'm the headquarters is down in that neighborhood, right? Where that strip club used to be.
Okay. Right, right, right. So this is the new gig, and they send you right back into the hotbed of when
Send me
you're
right back into the hotbed.
right, right. Okay.
So I've been down there for years, and I'm looking around. Things look a bit different after 10 years or so. That corner where that strip club was, I noticed it. Uh, it wasn't there anymore. Like, it was gone. Like, it was demolished. And there was a new building in that same geographical spot on that corner. And that's where I went to work to support people that are unhoused, to support people
Wow.
suffering substance use and marginalization. Where it's crazy because years ago when I was really unwell, I was, threatening them. I was damaging them, causing shit for them. And now I get sober and I'm at that same geographical spot on the earth and I'm there to help them.
That must
Crazy.
have blown your mind, right? Like, you're
Yeah.
like double, triple checking, you look at the address, you're like,
Yeah. What am I doing there? Right? Like, what's going on? So that was kind of the start. And then I started studying, working in, shelters and housing programs. And then I started working in treatments, like residential treatments, as I'm going to school. And I like to call this thing that we have a condition. I really encourage people to label it and use the vernacular of like what works for them, right? Doesn't matter, right? Disease, disorder, whatever. I like to call it a condition because for me that makes sense. And it really is a condition of never enough for me, right?
right. And I could, you know, I like that because it puts it simply that like moderation's not in the cards, right? And it's just what it is. So the efforts in trying to like bottle ourselves in as addicts and like, we're just natural over the top. And so that's something I've seen that fails the most is like, "Oh, well, I'll just do a little bit or I'll
Yeah.
manage it." It's like, no, no fucking way you're not. Like you're gonna be gone and your flux capacitor is gonna kick in. You're gonna wake up 2 days from now and then wonder what the hell happened. That's what's gonna happen. You're not gonna have two. Right?
Yeah.
It's not a reality. But saying that we have a condition, then the condition is that it's not enough, right? Never is.
Never knows.
And but so you like, is that an element of these frameworks and kinda like some of these like approaches that you came up with?
Yeah, yeah, it definitely is. It's a little bit more value driven too, and based upon like a postmodern psychological stance, right? And when we go towards like, the black and white of it, like you said, like it used to be very black and white, right? You have a disorder or an addiction or you don't, right?
Right,
And nobody believes they do, like the whole like functioning alcoholic thing, right? Everybody's a functioning alcoholic until they're not.
right,
So, what we do is we break it down, right? Because, it has to be layered. It has to be a bit more nuanced than that.
right.
So, we start with substance use, right? And who uses substances? Everybody, right? Other than food, everybody uses substances, medication, nicotine, coffee, whatever. We all do. And then below that, we have substance misuse. And that's using a substance for other than medical or ritual purposes.
Okay.
So like,
Say that one more time though, Drew. It's using a substance for something other than medical
exactly,
or ritual? Is that the other one? Is it
exactly, right? So
right, okay.
yeah, because, if we are prescribed 2 pills a day, right, that's just substance use. Misuse would be taking 4 of those, right? The ritual stuff is really contextual. Like, we think about ayahuasca in Peru or ibogaine or some crazy jungle, right? But in North America, we have crazy rituals too that involve substances. Some dudes, they'll have a few more beers on Monday Night Football, right? That's just a ritual.
Yeah.
Some people just smoke pot at concerts, you know? And like probably really shocking to you, and it was to me, that some people just get a bag of Coke once a year.
Yeah. That's
Right?
and no, I've said this too. I've said this too. Like, if you did heroin twice a year, you'd be fine. You'd be fine. You'd be
Right.
100% fine. You wouldn't feel any physical, like your body would be fine, your brain would be fine. But the problem is that the likelihood of you only doing it 2 times a year is very low. So, like,
Very
that's
low.
the issue. Right.
That would just be ritual, right? Say you did a smash of dope on your birthday and on Christmas. Ritual,
Right.
not a problem, right?
Right.
Underneath that substance misuse, we find ourselves with problematic use. And that's when using a substance impacts like 5 big life areas: your family, your relationships, your health, mental, emotional, behavioral, physical, your career, your job, your goals, whatever those big 5 might be. And the thing is too, is like, we know when it's starting to cause problems, right? But if it's just causing a problem with our wife or our girlfriend, and we still got a fat bank account, we got a great job, we got all our buddies, and our health is supreme, well, that doesn't really propel us to say, hey, maybe I should cut this out, right?
Right.
My experience in working in treatment for years is that most people, they cross out like 4 or 5 of those, right? And then they say, shit, I have to look at this. Because once those life areas are demolished by using or drinking, then we come to the last layer, which is chronic dependency.
Mm,
And that's addiction, right? That's addiction, in my opinion.
sure. Yeah, that's I mean, well, now are you talking about, like, the physical dependence in addition, like the conjoined physical and also the mental addiction? 'Cause I've been talking about this recently, it was all the genesis of it was when I did a podcast recording with a guy who took his medicine as prescribed, and it was like it was a Xanax-like drug.
Yeah,
And then, he never misused and then when he tried to get off of it, he was totally fucked.
yeah,
It messed with him, he couldn't get he still has problems, and he never stepped out of line, he took it as directed, right? And so he was
yeah,
explaining to me that he was addicted physically and not even in the least bit, like, mentally, like, to the act. And I said, "Oh, man, that really resonates with me because, you know, like, calling the guy and driving over there, I would get pumped. I would have all kinds of endorphins and all kinds of dopamine just dumping into my body before I got the drugs.
yeah, yeah,
So it was like I understood when I was like, "Wow." So here's that guy, he was, like, suffering. He never stepped out of line. I was like, "Wow, that's pretty tough, man." But I will say this, like, when you talk about crossing off, like, out of the big 5 areas, that's a gift for me that all of mine were crossed out. There was no question. There was no, "Hey, maybe I think I got a problem," or something like that. No, 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 no. It
yeah,
was 100% certain. It was kind of a gift because some people, when they cross off 2, they kinda limp along.
totally.
And then they've it's like they're just limping along and things are still they're not right. And it's because of that issue, right? Because they've got that substance and they never do anything about it because it's not bad enough to do anything about.
Yeah, and like, only we know individually when we've reached that threshold, right?
Yeah.
And when you say, like, what is the chronic dependency? I think it's the same. I think it's really subjective between anybody, right? I really believe there is this just crazy strong emotional dependency on our stuff. Like, that is such an intimate relationship with our
Yeah.
substance, right? So there's that emotional dependency. There's also the neurological one, right? Like, that one's a bitch. Okay. Like, that is the most devastating one. Physically, we could come off like benzos, like you mentioned, that's tough, right? That's tough, but there's still treatment and medication to tyrate that. Anything else physically, we stop doing it, we're good in like a week, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
emotional and the mental attachment is what really keeps people coming back, right? What after they've made that call that, hey, listen, like there might be a better way to live. It's also so familiar, right? And we confuse things that are familiar with things that give us comfort. But just because something is familiar doesn't mean it's healthy. Or just because something familiar doesn't mean it's safe. It's just
Right.
fucking familiar, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
But to
it's like an
work
abusive relationship, it's like, "Hey,"
exactly, exactly.
like, "This person's kicking your ass every other day," like, but because the fear of being without it is worse than the actual ass kicking, right? So
100%.
you get
It
stuck.
it's not it is the fear of being without it, but what it is the fear of uncertainty, right?
Mm,
That's what keeps us stuck because we like certainty. We love predictability, okay? And we found this entity, whatever it was, whatever form, however you put it in your nose or your arm or your throat, that thing, that relationship was so predictable and it was so certain for us. It always did what it was supposed to do. It was always there when we wanted it. It never talked back to us, right?
right, right.
But it gave us something. It gave us some value, right?
Yeah.
Whether that was relief, escape, courage, energy, whatever. It gave us something.
It's so crazy you call it a relationship because that's it's unique, but I get it, right? It's and there's something to be said for people that go to drugs and alcohol. Most of the time, they're not stupid. I mean, you ran all these organizations at a young age. You manage all of these things, and you're half drunk. Like it's not the fact that you're that you're not smart, but it's because you are smart that you leaned into something that's cheap, fast, and and it gets you what you needed. It's almost like a no brainer if you're only thinking in the moment.
100%, right? Like the biggest problem with drugs and alcohol is that they do a really, really good job. That's the biggest problem with them, right? Can you imagine, like, would you have drank what you drank if it just kinda gave you a slight buzz here and there?
Right. No, man, it made me feel like Superman, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
did a
right?
great job, right? So
That's the problem. It does too big of a job, but, a lot of people, they look at that, and in all fairness, right, they target the problem on drugs and alcohol, right? What's my problem? My problem is I use drugs too much, or my problem is I drink all the time, right? And, I confront that and I say, well, no, the drugs and booze, that's not the problem at all, really. Okay. The problem is living without the drugs and alcohol. That's the problem, right? Is living without them. And then you go to this journey because it's natural. It's normal for when I was drinking, it was normal for me to drink. It was natural. And I'm sure you could feel that same too, right? But then when you take that away, the world is abnormal, right? Everything feels unnatural. That's a scary thing, right? And that's that familiarity. Just you're tossing out the trash, and you're saying, hey, this is very unpredictable. This is very uncertain. And as humans, we have the choice, right? Like we know this road where this road goes. We know exactly where this road goes. We know what the destination looks like. We know what's going to happen when we arrive. I'm sure of it. But this road, I don't know where that goes. I don't know what I'm going to face when I get to the end. Is there going to be an end? Who's going to be there? What's it going to look like? 9 times out of 10, you know, we'll choose this because it,
yeah,
it feels this irrationally safe to us.
right.
That predictability, that certainty, right?
Yeah. Well, well, tell me more about your book and like like what did you develop, right? And so I can make some suspicions about what's going on here, but from chaos to clarity, like, are you talking about just your own personal journey, Are you somewhat guiding somebody if that's what they want is clarity? 'Cause, you've got some experience in recovery centers and being on both ends of it. I guess, what exactly is happening in this book, Simple Shit for Complicated People?
Yeah. Well, the title speaks for itself. So it's not about me at all. It's not about my story
Okay,
or my journey. I I have my experience, I have my story, but I've been gifted with so many other individuals' experience and stories when they're unwell, and stories of them achieving what they want into life.
awesome.
So
That is awesome.
the book is about it's a conversation like this, right? I talk to people all day, and I went to grad school and all that, and I was told I wasn't a good writer because I had to write academically, and I was always told that I write like I talk, and I couldn't do that, right? So I kind of said, well, that's what I want to do, so I'm going to do that. So I wrote a book talking like I talk, the conversations I have every day. And I guess in essence, it's helping somebody to construct their story, right? And with the model of like, hey, you wrote these chapters, cool, right? You wrote them, you might think they're interesting. If they involve drugs and alcohol, sure, you had some good times, you had some stories. But what are the next chapters gonna look like, right? Like, let's really unpack that shit, right? What are the next chapters gonna look like? Where do you want to arrive? How are you gonna arrive there? What's the journey look like for you individually? Okay, because the biggest paradox in this whole recovery thing, Ryan, is that again, my opinion, it's an individual process that cannot be done alone. Okay. So if my book can act like a companion for somebody who feels alone, that's what I want.
Sure.
But I also want to signal to anybody reading it that you have these values in order to get where you're going. They are deeply entrenched in your DNA, in your character, right? And I go into it where I believe values are just neutral, right? They're neither good nor bad, positive or negative. They're just what they are. But it's how we execute and how we operationalize those values
Right.
that make them healthy or positive for us or negative. And I'll give you an example, right? Like, well, let me ask you, do you think that you were living a value-based life when you were out there running around doing your thing?
Absolutely not. All I chased and I was explicit about it, that all I was looking for was happiness. If I wasn't happy, I knew drugs, alcohol, sex, snowboarding, what I had to do something. I had to do something to make me happy. And then you chase that long enough and you just learn that it's like completely bottomless, right? And there's just nothing there. And
Right.
so then I did, I changed that value of happiness and immediate, you know, joy, I guess if you wanna call it, but, joy I feel has more meaning, but, I was just looking for any immediate dump of dopamine and happiness inside of me, and it didn't matter where it came from. And I found that to be the worst pursuit ever, right?
But it was a pursuit. There was a vehicle that you got on to your happiness, okay? And let me ask you this, say you were drinking, the liter vodka. If you got your money and you went to the liquor store, right? And somebody broke in the night before, they're closed. Would you just say, "Well, guess I'm not drinking today," and go home?
At that point, hell no. Like, I would just find another way to get the alcohol, like, that was my singular mission, right?
Yeah. Seriously, I would argue that that's perseverance. I would argue that that's determination, right?
Yeah.
And even, you know, finding the money, like, who else can turn, like, $4.73 into a 4-day bender, right?
Yeah.
Like, it takes incredible creativity to accomplish that, okay?
Sure.
Like, for
Yeah.
me, running around half cocked, running a business, right? I had to be pretty creative, and then, come on, the value of hard work. Being that guy, It's not easy. It's not a lazy man's venture, right?
Right.
So just right there, we have four really values that, are deeply entrenched in you. But you used all those to destroy yourself.
Yeah.
So what if we harness those in another direction? And I'm sure that you do that. I'm sure that you do that. Putting together all this stuff that you do. It's not easy. You gotta work hard at it, right?
Right.
You are consistent. So there's determination there to be consistent. One of the other values I think most of us carry is loyalty. Okay. We were loyal to that feeling. We were loyal to that escape, and we were loyal. Like, you were probably loyal to your brand of vodka, dude, right?
Right, in a way. Yeah, and I think that lends to, like, kind of the ritual element of it, it does, and it's also to your point about certainty, right? Like, just seeing a label or, feeling that feeling before it's actually hitting you biologically, that substance, right? You know what's coming. You can count on it, right? And so, yeah, I guess, the loyalty element of it. 'Cause, imagine, okay, I think a pretty good example of that is like somebody that goes to the same bar all the time. They wanna go to the same bartender every time, right? And they won't get their drinks from anywhere else, and that's a very common element of, like, being in a bar, like, "Oh, no, I don't wanna drink from anybody but that person," right? So, yeah.
And like, people feel bad when they have to call somebody other than their guy for a bag of dope, right? They're like, man, like, I'm being disloyal to my drug dealer, right? Like,
It's a nasty, closely knit group of people, you're right,
oh
you
yeah.
know?
Everyone's become great friends, It's like, and that's the momentum that in life we find ourselves with, right? Like, if we are surrounding ourselves with, you know, other humans that are participating in some sort of behavior, healthy or not, right? Let's say it's unhealthy or dangerous or unproductive, whatever it is, right? That momentum will carry us that way too, right? Will carry us the way that that group is going. If we plug ourselves into a healthy group of people, doing things that we want to participate in and we think are beneficial to our lives and give us a strong sense of purpose, well, that their momentum will carry us too, right? And I think when somebody enters recovery the first time, they're kind of in the middle there, like which way is the wind gonna blow me? And it's important for people that have had that lived experience to say, hey, listen, we're going this way, right? You want to come? Right? There's a
Yeah.
seat, no matter what that is. But more importantly, for that person who's kind of stuck in the middle, they have to really, and that's the hardest for people in recovery is, there's a lot of doctrine, there's a lot of rhetoric, there's a lot of like vernacular that's pretty traditional in these kind of recovery or support groups or treatment centers. And so many people say, I can't buy into that. Like, I just don't know if that's for me, right? And they knock it off that that's the only way. Another thing my book does is say, "Hey, listen, there's 1,000 different ways you landed here, and there's 1,000 different ways that you can get out of here. The hardest part you have is to explore and investigate all these different methods, all these different support groups, all the shift in thinking, the self compassion, the story that you tell yourself. That's the hardest part for you, but don't be in a hurry."
Yeah, and I think it is I almost feel like it's a duty, but I don't know if I wanna use the word duty. It's maybe a responsibility because you're right, people are stuck in the middle.
Yeah,
And they could get the call from the guy, right when they get out of rehab and that wind takes them back the other way. Or if there's enough people like yourself who's like, hey, 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 look, we can ride this momentum towards something bigger and better. And I feel deeply that it's a responsibility that we all share our stories and our testimonies. And I also think that that's the cornerstone of why AA is so successful is because it's truly just this group of people and they share their testimonies and the habit of that. And then of course meeting all the time, like they may have done at the bar. So there's that loyalty element. And so it supplants
yeah,
a different scenario, but it's contingent on everybody sharing. And I think that's why it's so important, like, for you to have, like, the courage to write this book. I wrote my book. I know that I was, like, pumped while I was writing it. It was like I was
Yeah,
on
yeah.
fire.
I had a good time. It was
Was
fun.
that was that, like how did it go for you? Like, when did you decide that it was important for you to put it into a book form? Like, when did you like, "Oh, that's
Okay,
what I'm doing?"
so I kinda mapped it out a few years ago, right? And I was being a total nomad. I was, you spend a couple hours here in this treatment center and this consulting work here and doing some, counseling. I was a complete nomad. And I told myself, I said, "I gotta get a real job," right? I don't know, that just hit me. I'm like, "I gotta get a real job," right? Like, I'm getting old, right? Like, I should just get a real job, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday kinda deal. So that's what I did, and I went and it was same work, but I worked with a lot of government projects, designing different kind of, treatment centers and residential care and, all sorts of crazy shit. And, I got to a point in that where it was just money and politics, and I don't know if you could tell, I'm not very much of a politician, and nor did I wanna subscribe to that.
Right, right, right.
So it's funny to do because I was getting pretty like miserable in what I was doing. And I had this thought, and I have a friend who has like a pretty big recovery society out here. And I said, "Hey, listen, let me come in and let me just like do a group or do a class, right? Like for me, right? Because just for me, because I feel like I'm sinking in this work, and I just that shit pumps me up." So I did a couple of that, right? And I was like, what am I doing here? This is really where I want to belong. This is how I want to spend my days. Like talking to people like you, talking to people that, just need somebody to come in and repair their rudder a little bit and steer the ship to
Right.
where they want to go, right? Like, and so I got out of that real job, and then I was like, I'm gonna write this book just to kind of refresh me, right? Getting back into it, and then I was like, oh yeah, holy shit! And I was thinking about more of it, and yeah, you know what? I wrote it pretty quick. I think there's a bunch of fucking spelling errors in there. So don't don't judge me. I like things, now and immediate.
Right,
I
right.
think actually, I think I've corrected most of them, but there might be a few grammatical errors still.
Yeah,
Yeah, I didn't even know what to expect. I just like, I'm gonna write this book,
yeah,
and people started really liking it.
right,
It's like, wow,
right.
that's crazy.
Well, I got and good on you, and that's why I want to reiterate that it takes courage to, like, just do it, man, and just send that damn thing out, and
Yeah,
yes, there's gonna be the I don't like, I paid for an editor, I did all that stuff. I swore to myself up and down, "It is ready." It prints, I get a copy, I'm like, "Oh, damn."
yeah, right.
Like, I feel like but that's not the point. The point is to have the guts to share it, get it out there, hit publish, see what happens. There will be people that like it, there'll be people that don't like it, and it's the most amazing adventure to put together, and I think that's why authors get so much respect. I mean, hell, you wrote a book, it's probably opened more doors for you than anything else, am I right?
Yes and no. Definitely opened up some conversations, right? But I'm sure you feel like that. Like you feel so exposed when you put it out there, right? You feel so
Right.
exposed and like you're naked or something, vulnerable, because you have your thoughts and your own kind of philosophy that you're saying, hey, this is what I believe. And we're not saying, hey, you should believe this too. You're just saying, hey, this is my internal resources saying on paper, this is the belief, right?
Love that. Saying, "Hey, this is my internal resources, and that is my belief," and you're putting it on paper, right?
You're exposing that, exposing your internal shit, right? It's like exposing it on paper, Judge me, don't judge me, like it, don't like it. That's cool, but like it really needs a level of confidence, I found too. And most of us, especially men, we don't really speak about confidence, right? We speak about it like it's this taboo subject. But there was once a point in my life, and I'm sure yours, that you know, the biggest obstacle that we had to move forward was this crisis of confidence that we had. right?
Sure. Yeah.
And it was only moving forward and taking action on, whatever we thought was important to us that really gave us and maximized some of that confidence to take us out of the crisis, right? And once you get to that point where it's not like unhealthy ego, it's just confident in being you, right? It's like,
Right.
hey, that's just who I am. I'm confident. I got I'm not trying to impress anybody anymore, you know? Did that before. That was tired. That was exhausting.
Yeah.
And, the most important relationship, Ryan, we all have is a relationship with ourselves. And we don't talk about that relationship with ourselves, especially as men, right? So in my work, I really talk a lot about what does that relationship look like with yourself? Okay. Do you talk to yourself like somebody that you have a healthy relationship with? Do you trust yourself? Because if you don't trust yourself, you're not going to trust anybody else, dude. Right?
Right. And oddly, that's what I consider confidence to be is confidence is created by keeping promises to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Totally.
I believe that, like, when you do something over and over again, so you do the repetitions of something, you build confidence by keeping that promise to yourself that you will do it again, and then you do it again, and then it just bolsters this confidence. I think that's what true confidence is, and that's kinda how I frame it.
Yeah. It's not bravado. It's not stoicism. Right?
Right,
It's
right.
saying, this is a commitment I'm making, and I'm confident that I'm going to follow through on that.
Yeah,
Right?
100%.
That, the condition of never enough, like I talk about, we really have to be cautious about the commitments that we make, right? Because who wants to break a commitment? Nobody. It doesn't feel good. We're not
Right,
the human condition, dude, we're not designed to like lie, right? It's not
right,
natural. But how many commitments did you break when you were off doing your shit, right?
right.
I'm the same way. We all are. And that is a version of ourselves that, was a product of the drugs and booze, right? Version of ourselves that I like to think about that we show up today is a product of authenticity, right? And it's a product of a healthy relationship with ourselves. And, the other part of this is that it takes two healthy people for a healthy relationship.
Sure.
So we can't expect, you know, somebody who has a really, really savage relationship with them to go have a healthy relationship with somebody else. It's not going to work. So that's the book leans into all that stuff and probably some muddled up formulas and pages,
Hey,
abstract, and
man.
all that.
I think it's impressive as hell. Again, man, I applaud you, for having the guts to do it, man. You put it
Thanks.
on paper, your beliefs and everything else that comes with it, man, spelling errors and all. You're like,
Yeah, well, I hope they're mostly corrected. Who knows?
"Hey, it's all good, man. You still did it." It's 10 times more impressive than somebody who's still got that thing written on a bunch of pieces of paper, wait until it's perfect, man. I think it's great. And I think that's what, you know hitting publish and then being an author, like, I wrote a book,
Yeah,
and I think it only truly you can only really become that until it's actually shared officially with other people for them to criticize you. Without the criticism, you're not an author, you're just some
yeah,
guy who writes things
totally.
down.
Yeah, I struggle with calling myself an author. I put the book out in October, so it's been a little over 3 months.
Yeah, hey,
What do
and
you
we're
what do
we're
you do?
riding the we're
People
ri
ask me, yeah, people ask me what I do. I'm not there yet. I'm not there to say, well, author. Sometimes I've been saying lately, I do a little bit of writing.
okay.
I don't know if I'm minimizing it, but it's that validation that, you know, with us, dude, it's, we run towards validation all the time, right? But then we hide when it finds us.
Yeah,
Isn't that peculiar, right? Like it's this push and pull of stretch of needs that, is I guess uniquely human to people that have been in the places that we've been in. Or
it's the gift of the struggle, man. It's the gift of the struggle, the mental gymnastics, if you will. So, yeah, man, I think that you have officially bottled up all of that tenacity and ingenuity and creativity that you had when you're probably hiding drinks all over the house or wherever. I think you did it, man. And I also appreciate that you've got boots on the ground, in the recovery space and you're helping people face to face. And that's a real blessing, man. Now let everybody know, like, where can they find the book? Is there a site? Is it Amazon? And then I'll
Yeah,
put everything in black and white too. I'll have everything so everybody can check it out.
yeah, yeah, I think it's in some, bookstores up here, but I'm far away from Florida. Amazon, Apple, and stuff for e-versions, but Amazon's probably the most likely one. And then my website, simpletheory.ca, there's a link to find it there as well, and some other pieces of writing that I've done.
All right, so you got some other stuff there too. Okay.
I got some other stuff, yeah, I was playing around with the whole blog thing, I'm not a techno wizard, dude, and, like, I don't know what I'm doing, right? But, I
Nobody
enjoy
does.
writing books, so I've been enjoying putting some thoughts out there and some, just some different versions of some traditional thinking, maybe?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, man. And like I said, I'm gonna make sure that we get some eyeballs on all of your writing, man, not just the book. But yeah, Jeff, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you, even though it's like much earlier in the day, it's time for this kid to hit the sack, brother.
Well, let's celebrate the work that you do in, holding space for a platform like this as well, Ryan, because it really makes a difference. So thank you for all your investment and your effort into holding space for, people's messages of despair into healing.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you too, brother. And that's been another episode of the next fix. We'll see you on the next one, y'all.
Bye.